Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm coming at you with a Storytime video, first of its kind on this channel. Not really an impressive feat given that this channel is still somewhat nascent. But the idea for this video came about as I was watching a couple days ago a video on bike infrastructure in urban areas published by this city planning YouTube channel called City Beautiful that I occasionally frequent from time to time. And it brought me back to this memory of mine from a couple of years ago, really an incident involving me bike riding in a neighborhood about a mile from my house. So let's tell that story. Let's get started. I was riding in this neighborhood, and it's not exactly the most bike-friendly place in the city, as I kind of live in the suburbs. So the way this road was configured, there were two driving lanes, two car lanes, one lane for southbound traffic and one lane for northbound traffic. I was adjacent to the lane that was for northbound traffic. Obviously there's two sidewalks on the opposite ends of the road, and it's pretty much the only place I could have ridden my bike on. So as I'm riding through the neighborhood, I cross this intersection, no problem. But coming up, where there's a slight curve in the road, or the road begins to curve slightly, I see this silver car parked on the very sidewalk upon which I'm riding. Now, as I said before, I don't really have many options aside from the sidewalk to be riding, so this is already kind of irritating me. You know, when I bike, I want to bike with continuity and fluidity. No interruptions, just want to feel the breeze going past my face and going past my ass cheeks. That's all I ask for, nothing more. Just to keep on moving and just enjoy myself. But I see the silver car parked in front of this house, which is under construction. Now, immediately I can already connect two and two. I can deduce that this car belongs to someone who's working or inspecting that newly constructed house. Now, adjacent to that house is another one whose front lawn is surrounded by fence gate, right? So between this car and this fence gate, there was a slight gap that I could have attempted to shimmy through. So I either had that option to get around the car, or actually very haphazardly merge into the northbound traffic lane and potentially get messed up from behind by a car, get swooped off my bike and just fall on my ass in the street, right? I chose the former option, and I chose to see if I can try to shimmy my way through this small gap, this relatively slim, narrow gap in between the car and the fence gate. Now, as I'm getting closer, I'm like, all right, I can shimmy through that. But the closer I get, the more I realize, I'm like, wait, can I actually shimmy through this? Because obviously there's the bike, which got through just fine. But then there's the handlebars, and most importantly, the guy's right side view mirror, right side wing mirror, right side mirror looking like a fucking ear mirror, whatever you want to call it. But it's jutting out nonetheless, so it's sort of blocking my path. So I'm like, oh shit, I'm fucked. But I've already committed too much to trying to see if I can get through this gap in between this gate and this guy's car. So as I'm approaching, I'm trying to see if I can slow down. Still partially trying to see if I can get through it, but trying to slow down so that I don't accidentally collide with his mirror. But unfortunately for me, the momentum carried me forward a little more than I would have wanted, so then my left side handlebar collided with this guy's mirror. Now, as far as I know, the bike was totally fine. The mirror got sort of fucked up. Mirror was pushed forward a little bit, and the glass upon which was the mirror was pushed in slightly. The worst timing in the world for my part, because the guy whose car this was just exiting the garage of the newly constructed house. And I'm assuming he was either working on the house or doing some routine inspection, but he saw the last 2-3 seconds of me leading up to the crash, right? Or the collision. So he would have seen me approach his side view mirror, try to evade it, but ultimately still end up colliding with it. So understandably, he's sort of upset with me. He goes off, he's like saying, "Oh man, what the fuck? That's my car, man. Damn, you just should have gone around it into the road, man. It's not rocket science." Now, all the while, I'm like saying sorry to him over and over, just being pretty apologetic, acknowledging that I made sort of a misjudgment, and trying to ride away before this guy could probably take me off my bike and spank me. So I'm riding off, but then I'm thinking about that last statement of his, the "it's not rocket science" statement, and that rubbed me the wrong way. You see, I'm acknowledging already that I made a misjudgment and I made a mistake in hitting this guy's side view mirror. I was actually able to get through that gap just fine, if you're wondering, like, you know, if I was able to just get around it, you know, after I had already made the collision. But something about that last statement rubbed me the wrong way. It made me a little defensive, despite me fully acknowledging and being fully aware that I made a clear mistake and a clear error in judgment. And, well, let me just show you a configuration of my situation, a little map that I threw together on Microsoft Paint to show you what I mean. So here's a configuration of my situation. So the N with the arrow beneath it is obviously north on this map. I've highlighted the specific sidewalk that I was riding along, the red arrow being my trajectory, and the arrows beside that being the direction of car traffic. Now you can see that the car was parked pretty much directly in my way. You know, God forbid there would have been like a huge line of traffic in the northbound lane, so it would have been that I had to go all the way around that automobile Great Wall of China just to get through. But when I said that his last statement about rocket science and all that bullshit rubbed me the wrong way, there's something I forgot to mention. I realized I forgot to mention. This house, as far as I'm aware, was already mostly built. So the house was built, it was there in its full form, basically. I don't think the exterior work was finished, but you can tell that some progress had been made. Windows were already installed, and the front door and everything, and the garage door was installed, I believe. I can't exactly recall if the driveway had been paved with concrete at that time. I think it was just still paved with gravel, but nonetheless, there was more than an ideal space for this car, or this guy, to park his car, which is highlighted here in brown to represent a piece of shit. There was more than enough space for this guy to park his car in the driveway. Now, why didn't he do that? Well, that's beyond me. That's the question I've been trying to ask ever since this freaking happened. But his rocket science statement rubs me specifically the wrong way, because I'm aware that he could have just done something like this. So let me just go ahead and undo this freaking car. In either one of these spots, because the driveway was about enough space for 2 cars, you know, that was the width of the driveway, it could have handled 2 cars, he could have just easily done this. Parked this car in the driveway, would have saved him and myself so much trouble, you know? Now, you're thinking, how would it have saved trouble? You know, he still has to pull out and shit, you know? Well, he would have had to do that regardless, given that he's parked adjacent to the lane that, you know, he would have been going in if he would have pulled out of there. He would have had to make sure that lane of cars was clear. But he doesn't have to haphazardly get out of the car and literally exit into oncoming traffic. And God forbid, had my timing been any worse, had I arrived like probably 10 minutes later or earlier, I would have come up, tried to merge around his car, he would have opened the door, and I would have struck his door. He would have been mad at me, I would have been mad at him. It's a no-win situation if you park on the sidewalk, literally the only space I fucking had on that road, you know, just to park there in my way and expect nothing wrong to happen, you know? So, while acknowledging the fact that I did make a mistake here, this guy could have just easily done some precautionary measures to make sure that what happened didn't end up happening. And that's what really pisses me off about this, is the fact that, you know, clearly in the way that he parked, there was no real consideration for people who could have been passing through on this fucking sidewalk. So that's all I ask for, you know, as a pedestrian and as a person who doesn't really drive yet. I ask of drivers all across the world, since the automobile is a relatively new thing, but it yet has come to dominate the road landscape in the world, to have some compassion, some consideration for your fellow road users, such as pedestrian, bikers, etc. We're all in this together. We're all trying to use the road and not die. I guess the odds are somewhat stacked against, like, you know, let's say people like me, because, you know, there's these 2-ton steel cages of death that these people are driving in, so my life and many others are basically in the hands of the people who are driving. That's really my story. That's a little PSA at the end too, why not? Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in another. Drive with consideration of your fellow men and women. That's all.